Welcome to Stories That Transform, where ordinary moments become extraordinary revelations. Today's story will remind you that talent never truly dies. It only waits for the perfect moment to resurface. Marcus Williams worked as a night custodian at a prestigious corporate tower in downtown Chicago. Every evening, as the city lights flickered to life and the offices grew silent, he began his solitary routine. Mopping marble floors, emptying wastepaper baskets, wiping down conference room tables. To the hundreds of employees who passed through those gleaming hallways, Marcus was invisible, just another face in the background, someone whose name they never learned, and whose story they never asked about. But Marcus carried a secret that nobody in that building could have imagined. Before life reshaped his path, before circumstances forced him to choose survival over passion, Marcus had been a musician, not just any musician, a pianist whose fingers could make an old upright sing with emotion. He had performed at intimate venues throughout the city, small jazz clubs, elegant wedding receptions, hotel lounges where couples danced under soft lighting. His music had been modest but heartfelt, the kind that made strangers stop their conversations and simply listen. Then tragedy arrived without warning. Marcus's wife, Elena, died in a devastating car accident, leaving him alone with their infant son, Thomas. In a single moment, everything changed. The music that had once been his language became unbearable to hear. Every melody reminded him of what he'd lost. Every chord progression echoed with absence. He couldn't sit at a piano without feeling the weight of her missing presence beside him. So Marcus did what countless others have done when dreams become too painful to hold. He sold his beloved piano to cover rent. He took the first steady job he could find, custodial work that paid the bills and asked nothing of his heart. He buried his gift beneath responsibility and routine. Years accumulated quietly. Thomas grew from infant to child to young teenager, watching his father leave for work each night and return each morning, exhausted but determined. The boy never once heard his father play, though a faded photograph hung in their small kitchen, a younger Marcus at a piano, smiling with confidence and joy. Thomas would occasionally ask, "Dad, will you ever play music again?" And Marcus would offer a tired smile and reply, "Perhaps someday, son, when the right moment arrives." That moment came on a cold December evening, 15 years after Marcus had last touched piano keys. The corporation where Marcus worked had organized an extravagant holiday celebration in the building's grand atrium. The event drew executives, investors, and employees dressed in formal attire. A professional jazz ensemble performed on a raised platform. Champagne flowed freely, crystal chandeliers cast warm light across the marble floors, and positioned prominently at the room's center stood a magnificent black grand piano, gleaming and untouched. Marcus had been assigned cleanup duty for after the event, so he worked discreetly along the perimeter, emptying glasses, collecting discarded napkins, staying invisible as always. As midnight approached and alcohol loosened inhibitions, a group of younger employees noticed Marcus working near the piano. One of them, laughing loudly, called out, "Hey, let's see if the janitor knows how to play." His companions joined the laughter, pointing toward Marcus. The challenge hung in the air, half joke, half mockery. Marcus froze. His hands tightened around the handle of his cleaning cart. Every instinct told him to ignore the comment, to continue with his work, to remain invisible. But something deeper stirred within him. Perhaps it was dignity, perhaps it was memory, perhaps it was simply that he had been silent long enough. Slowly, deliberately, Marcus set down his supplies and walked toward the piano. The laughter faded into confused silence. People turned to watch, some amused, others curious about what would happen next. Marcus sat on the leather bench, his work-worn hands hovering above the ivory keys. They trembled slightly. 15 years of silence stretched between him and the instrument. Then he pressed a single note, clear, pure, haunting, then another and another. Within moments, Every conversation in that vast atrium died away. He didn't choose a familiar holiday song or a popular melody. Instead, his fingers found a composition he had written decades earlier, a piece created for Eleanor, performed at their small wedding, never played since her death. The music began softly, like a whisper of remembered joy. It spoke of young love, of promises made, of mornings filled with laughter. Then the melody shifted, deepening into something profound and aching. The notes carried loss, loneliness, the sound of a man who had survived when survival felt impossible. Each phrase told of dreams deferred, of talent buried, of years spent simply enduring. But the music didn't end in sorrow. Gradually, almost imperceptibly, hope emerged. A gentle rising, a quiet resilience. The melody spoke of a father's love for his son, of small kindnesses, of dignity maintained through hardship. When Marcus played the final chord and lifted his hands from the keys, complete silence filled the room. No one moved, no one spoke. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. The company's CEO, who had been standing near the back entrance, was the first to respond. She began clapping slowly, deliberately. The sound echoed through the atrium. One by one, others joined until thunderous applause filled the space. People stood, some wiped tears from their eyes. The professional musicians on the platform nodded with respect. Marcus rose from the bench, overwhelmed and embarrassed, his eyes glistening. He hadn't noticed that Thomas stood near the entrance. The boy had come to bring his father dinner and had arrived just in time to witness the moment that would alter everything. The next morning, Marcus's performance became a phenomenon. Someone had recorded the entire moment on their phone. They posted it online with the caption, "Custodian plays piano at corporate party. What happens next will leave you breathless." Within hours, the video spread across platforms. Millions viewed it. News organizations requested interviews. Television programs wanted appearances. The world had discovered the man who had poured 15 years of silence into one unforgettable song. But the viral attention meant less to Marcus than something deeper. For the first time since Elena's death, he felt whole. Music had returned not as a career or a dream, but as healing. Several months later, Marcus and Thomas moved to a brighter apartment, made possible by donations from moved viewers. The CEO had gifted them a beautiful upright piano. Marcus began offering free music lessons to neighborhood children whose families couldn't afford instruction. Each evening he would tell his students, "Music doesn't care about your circumstances or your mistakes. It only asks for honesty." Marcus's life hadn't become perfect. Bills still required attention, challenges still arose, but meaning had returned. Purpose had been restored. Sometimes, late at night when Thomas was asleep, Marcus would sit at that piano and play Eleanor's song. He would close his eyes and smile, no longer with pain, but with gratitude. That single performance, the one he thought would never happen, had given him back the gift he thought he'd lost forever. Because every life contains a turning point. Sometimes it arrives as tragedy, sometimes as unexpected grace. And sometimes it arrives when a man sits at a piano and remembers who he was always meant to be. This is Stories That Transform, where ordinary people discover their extraordinary truth.